cold drafty windows are the worst. So today I'm gonna test 5 different ways of insulating your windows and find out which one's the cheapest, which one is the best.
Wow, what a difference.
And there's a few different options that you probably haven't even thought of. We're gonna rank these across some different categories, and here's the 5 that I came up with. First of all, price. Next up, the ease of installation and removal, looks of the product, and then usability of your window after install, and finally, performance. Now you may not know this, but there are 2 major ways that you actually lose heat through windows. And I'm gonna call that direct and indirect. And the first one is the worst one, and that is direct. And that is when you have air leakage and your nice warm air from inside goes outside. And the cold outside air comes in. He's right. So I've got this little portable fog machine, and it'll shoot out a nice little cloud here. If you vapors know what I'm talking about. Stop vaping, by the way. It's really bad for you. But what we're gonna do is we're gonna just blow in this fog into the window here and look on the inside and see where it's coming through. And then we'll know how drafty our windows actually are. All right, so I do have a storm window that is up in this screen, but I'm just gonna shoot the fog straight through it. And I'm gonna start up here in the corner, see what we get. I'm gonna try the other corners as well. Check out that smoke. It is just starting to roll in over the gaps, and you can see it coming down all over this top sash and in between where they meet. And I bet the bottom is even worse. All right, now I'm gonna check out the bottom sill as well to see how bad it is. Now here we go. Look at all of this smoke just pouring out under the sash. And that's just because we don't have a good seal. And just imagine, that's all cold air rolling in from the outside and getting directly into your house. I would hate to be outside in this cold right now. Hey, I am still out here. Can I come in? Oh, yeah, sorry man, come on back in. Whoops. Now the first way to insulate the windows is to stop that air gap down at the bottom and at the top. And we'll start at the bottom. So insulating the bottom of your window, super important. I had this broken up little plastic insulation on here, and I pulled it off and pulled it out. These windows are like 40 years old, so it was ready to be replaced. I couldn't find a direct replacement for it, but I did find some options at the home center that could work. So we've got basically 3 different options, and these are from Frost King, as just whatever brand that your store has. This one's vinyl foam, and this guy's gray. These all do come in different colors as well. This one is about $4 for 17 feet, and this is the lightest weight duty one, and it's got a 3-year guarantee. Next up, we've got a rubber foam. This one is 4 stars, and this one's gonna hold up a little bit longer, a 5-year guarantee, and it costs around $6. And then finally, you've got the premium one, the premium rubberized 5 stars. And this guy comes in a 17-foot length for around $10. And the cool thing about this one, it does actually split in 2, so you could use it doubled up or single, but it has a little hollowed out cavity in it. So it's gonna take that compression a lot better. It's gonna last longer. I'm gonna go with this premium one so that I can put it in there and not have to worry about it for a long time. So I'm just gonna get this cleaned off. We're gonna stick it in there and see if we can get a good seal. All right, I'm gonna close this guy up, and this should be a way better seal on the bottom. And it locks in nice and tight. So one thing, if you get too thick of an insulation, you may not be able to lock it. So you may need to play around a little bit with the thickness of the foam. But next up, let's take care of the top of that sash. All right, so on the top, there are a couple different areas where we were leaking, and that is where the 2 sashes meet here up at the top, and then also in here on the corner where the window rides up and down. If you have a vinyl window, you may not have this little gap here, but a lot of them do have that. And what I'm gonna use to fill that little gap there is some caulk backing rod. So they call this polyfoam caulk saver. And all this is just a little bit more of that kind of polyfoam, and it's just a little squishy bead, and it's made for putting back behind large gaps that you're gonna caulk, but it also works really well in this situation. I actually have a couple different sizes, and I'm gonna cut them to size and fit them around these little gaps right there in where the rail rides up and down. So those first 2 ways, I would actually suggest you do these no matter what your situation is, basically, because these are, especially with the seal on the bottom, you put that in place and it's not going to affect the usability of your window at all. And these little foam pieces are really easy to remove. But this next one is window seal tape. And this is going to be one of the first ones that we start putting on that's going to start affecting the usability of your window, because you're going to have tape along the top seam between the top sash and the bottom sash. So you won't be able to open your windows anymore. But it will do a very good job of stopping the airflow. Now, there are a lot of different options online. This one is a 2-inch one that's about 30 yards, and it costs around $7. And actually, I think I got a limited edition because we've got this nice white powder on it. I think this one was the Pablo Escobar edition. Pretty cool. Now, the window seal tape can just go in all those areas where all of that fog and smoke was coming out, because that's where the cold air is. First of all, though, you want to make sure you clean off your windows. And I've just got a little bottle of isopropyl alcohol, and I'm just going to wipe this down so that we have a nice surface to stick to. All right, so this tape is pretty easy to go on. The most important thing, though, is just making sure that you kind of roll it into the edge here so that there's not a gap. And I've got mullion strips, so I'm gonna make a little notch for those too. Now, when you get to the lock, you can kind of go over it or whatever. I'm actually just gonna cut it and just pick up on the other side. So it's not gonna be perfect. I'll just do the same thing on the other side. All right, cameraman Adam, hit us with some smoke. Right now, I see a lot of smoke filling in there, but guess what? It is not coming in. Yeah, try this other corner over here. Oh, maybe just a little bit right in this corner is coming out. And just a little bit around the lock here. So I couldn't tape up the lock, but everything else looks really well contained. Now let's test out the bottom. And ooh, I do see some smoke still coming out here. Looks like it's a little less than last time. And this looks actually really good. I think it's on the corners there. Oh, that's interesting. It's actually seeping out from under here. There's a gap right up there under the windowsill where it was coming out. So to fix that gap at the bottom, you can definitely use some caulk just to seal that up. And then for this air gap where the air was still coming through a little bit, if you wanted to get it 100% tight, you can use that window tape seal there as well. And you already can't open your window because you've done the top, so you may as well do the bottom also. All right, now that we've taken care of the direct heat loss, let's talk about the second form, which is the indirect heat loss. And that is also known as conduction. And that is when basically temperatures from the outside transfer into the inside through objects. So we all know that in a house, you want to insulate your house. And you've probably heard of the term R value. And that is basically a measurement of how well something insulates, which means how hard it is for temperature to travel through an object. And everything has an R value. These walls might be 6 to 10, newer houses might be 17, 18, 19, might be even higher than that if you really have a lot of insulation. The problem is, windows have an extremely low R value, especially if you have an older window like we have here. A single pane of glass is about an R value of 1. Now the nice thing is if you add a storm window, that adds another pane of glass, which would give you an R value of 2. But the cool thing on top of that is that there's then an air gap in between. And actually air has an insulating value and it adds about another 1. So a single pane window with a storm window will have an R value of around 3. Now to really make this a good test, we do have 2 windows, which is awesome because we can use one for a test and one for a control. And what's even better is I've got my thermal imaging camera right here. So I'm gonna do each test on this window and then we'll be able to compare it to the control window on the other side that's getting all the same conditions, and we'll be able to use the thermal camera to see exactly what the temperatures are. So when we look at the window, you can see anything that's like bright yellow, that's the hottest thing in the camera, and then the dark purple is the coldest. So looking up at the top of the window, you can see that's around 57, 58 degrees on the top window panes. And it's a lot warmer than the bottom because actually the storm window is up at the top. And now that I think about it, it's actually doubled up because I have the storm window at the bottom pushed up. So we have 3 panes of glass up there at the top. Now at the bottom, we only have 1 pane of glass. So if I take it down and look at those temperatures, we're looking at 48. So it's a 10-degree temperature difference between the top window panes and the bottom. And that's how we're going to visualize the changes and how well they're working. The first one we're testing might be a little unexpected, and that is bubble wrap. It's not just for popping anymore. That's right, I've seen on the internet that if you put bubble wrap on your windows, it insulates really well. We'll talk about how hideous it's gonna look after we put it up. Now, obviously we have these little mullion strip dividers on our windows, so it's gonna be a lot more difficult than if you just had a big plain window. But we're not gonna let that deter us. I'm gonna go ahead and start cutting out little strips and actually, oh, look at this. That's highway robbery. This is a missing bubble right there. Get my money back on this stuff. All right, so these window panes are actually almost the exact size of this, and the bubble wrap is 12 inches wide, and it's about $7 for this whole roll. And to do 4 windows, 4 of our windows, it cost about $10.50. So I'm just gonna cut this stuff with the world's worst scissors. Now, if the internet is to be believed, all we need is a little squirt bottle of water, and I'm just gonna spritz the back of this, and I am spritzing the non-bubble side. There was a little debate about which side to do it, but I think that's ridiculous. Of course, you want the flat side. But now it should just basically kind of static cling up to the window. And try not to pop the bubbles while you're doing it, even though it's tempting. I know the camera's a little blown out. I think it's gonna look pretty ridiculous, but we'll see if it actually works. I'm gonna cut the rest of these, get these installed, and then we'll take some readings. Don't mind me, I'm just bubble wrapping my windows. All right, last one. I gotta say, ease of installation, I'd say this is very easy. Now, I had to cut each individual one, so a little bit harder for me, but if you're just doing a singular window, it'd be like 4 strips and you'd be done. But I tell you what, I know it's hard to see on camera, but I'm kind of digging this idea. You know, it's not just insulating, it's a privacy screen. And, you know, if a kid gets thrown against the window, it'll be a lot softer before it breaks the glass. We just put that up there, and I want to let it have a chance to kind of equalize and just do whatever it's going to do, because obviously the bubble wrap was a little bit warmer because it was sitting out here in room temperature. So I'm going to wait about a half hour, come back and take some readings. But right now it looks like up at the top it is. Yeah, look, it looks like it's actually right about the same. Also, the center row, we flipped it so that the bubbles are against the window because we thought that might be in better air gap because with the back being on there. So we'll see if there's any difference between having the bubbles facing out versus in. We'll come back in just a few minutes and see if we have anything to show. All right, so it's actually been closer to an hour now, and if there's any equilibrium to be had, then it's there. And also what I ended up doing was taking out the whole middle row because I thought window to window there might be enough of a difference where you wouldn't be able to see it, so we can just do the control all in this one window because of the window panes. So let's see how it is. Okay, so it looks like we are in the middle. We've got 60 degrees, 59.9, and 60.1. So basically that whole middle row is right about 60 degrees. Let's check the top one. The top one is 59.5, 59.8, and 59.5. So the top with the bubble wrap is actually colder than with no bubble wrap. That doesn't quite make any sense to me. Now the bottom, and I know this is gonna be colder down here because the storm window is open at the bottom. So 57.1, 58, 57.9. And I don't see any difference in between where the bubble is pointed out. So in the middle here, 58.2, where the bubbles are facing inward, and 57.1. I mean, basically guys, I'm not seeing much of anything. Maybe a degree difference. I'd be wanting to see like 2-3 degrees for this to make any kind of sense at all. I gotta say, I think this is a bust. I think the performance, we're giving that a 1 star. All right, so let's go ahead and start filling out the table. I'm gonna go back to the earlier ones since we didn't really document those. So the first 3 ones we tested was the bottom of the window insulation, the window seal tape, and then we tested using the backer rod to stick that down in there. Now we've got all the prices up there so we can rate them that way. As far as ease of install, those are all 3 very easy to install. So we're gonna rate things on kind of 1 through 3 stars, 3 being the best. I'll give those all 3 stars on ease of installation. As far as usability goes, the bottom of the window insulation, we're gonna give that a 3 star because you install it and you never have to think about it. You can open the windows freely, no problem. For the backer rod, I'm gonna give that 2 stars because you can just easily take it out and put your window up and down and then put it back in place. Not a huge big deal. And for the window tape, that's gonna be a 1 star because once you seal that up, you cannot open the window anymore. You're not gonna be able to do it. Now for looks, I'm gonna give, again, the window sill is gonna get 3 stars, the backer rod will be 2, and the window tape, I'll give the window tape 2 as well, because it's transparent, but you can kind of see it. It's kind of a little bit ugly. As far as performance goes, I think the bottom of the sill insulation, we'll give that thing a 2-star. The window tape, I'm gonna give that one 3 stars. That really blocks everything. And then the backer rod, I'll give that one also 2 stars, because those both had a little bit of gap between the backer rod and that bottom seal. Moving on to the bubble wrap, that's a whole nother ball game here. For performance, there was just not any substantial change at all that I could see enough to really even measure. So that's gonna be 1 star on the performance. For looks, again, we're going for 1 star. Unless you're going for that, tinfoil hat, neighbors stay away, I don't wanna talk to anybody. If you like that, then maybe that's a 3 star. Ease of install, I'll give that a 2 star, because it does take a little while, and actually when you pull it down, there's gonna be water on the window, you're gonna have to clean it up, and I am a little concerned about there being mold on the windows because you're putting up that water, but that would have to be something that you see over time. So for usability, I'm gonna give this one 2 stars. You can still use the window, but you lose your view. You can no longer see anything out there. Unless you're going for a little bit of privacy, then you're probably not gonna wanna do this. Now, let's move on to the next one, which I hope is gonna perform a lot better than this bubble wrap. It was kind of a fun idea though. All right, next step, we're gonna have a couple options that are gonna cover the entire window, so not just the panes. And to make sure that we can see the biggest kind of effect, I'm actually gonna take the tape off. So the windows will be bringing in a lot more air, and being able to stop that with whatever we're putting over it, hopefully we should be able to see a big difference. So I'm just gonna go ahead and take out the little backer rod and the tape. And we can also get a little bit of a view of how this tape, and this has only been on for actually over the weekend, if it's gonna start pulling up our paint or not. Oh, yeah. Check this out. Look at that. That just peeled up all of the paint off of here. That was only a couple days being on there. So if you left that on for a few months, it's probably gonna do that across the whole part. So that is definitely a downside to using the window tape. There's more of it coming off. And I'm gonna go ahead and take off a star from the installation, because the ease of removal, you're gonna have to come in here and you're gonna have to touch this up. This is pretty consistent with what I've seen when I've used this in the past, and it almost always rips up the paint. So that really stinks. I just had an idea, and I'm gonna test it as I take off the tape on the bottom, is for adhesive, sometimes when I'm taking off stickers, I heat them and that melts the glue or just makes that glue just a little less tacky. I'm gonna try it here and see if we can avoid ripping up the paint. See how it goes. This is actually working really well. I did get a little pull up there, but the paint was cracked and I could already see it was already separated, so that was pretty much gonna come up. But I really wish I had thought about that on the top. If you use a hairdryer, it should come up pretty clean. Still taking that star off though. And while we're trying to keep the cold out, there's also something else you want to keep out of your home, and that is pests. And that's where today's sponsor, Terminix, comes in. So just like this weatherproofing is going to help keep the cold out of our windows, Terminix helps keep unwanted invaders out of your home. Whether it's spiders that are creeping in through the cracks, rodents getting in to look for a warm place for the winter, or worse yet, termites causing serious structural damage to your home, Terminix has a solution for you. Terminix offers pest protection plans like their Pest 365, which targets common household pests like ants, spiders, rats, and a host of other creepy crawlers. With regularly scheduled visits, a trained professional will come out and inspect the interior and exterior of your home and apply effective treatments against these pests. And Terminix has a protection guarantee, so if you notice any of the covered pests in between visits, Terminix will come out and take care of them at no additional cost. So while you're buttoning up your home for the winter, make sure that it's protected from pests too. So you can head to the link down below in the description to Terminix.com, and you can learn more about their residential pest services and find the right plan for your home. And a big thank you for Terminix for sponsoring today's video. The next thing that we're going to test is a window insulation shrink kit. And I have used these a ton. When I used to live up in Cincinnati in a super old house, we put these on the windows all the time. And again, this is from Frost King. Frost King is basically what's at Home Depot. That's where we bought all this stuff. I'm definitely not saying this is better than any other ones. So just go read the reviews and get the one that you think is the best, or that's the cheapest. This is just the one that we're using. So here's all that comes with it. It's actually really simple. It is just some double-sided tape and some plastic barrier. All right, so mounting this up is really easy. You just need a tape measure and a pair of scissors. So the first thing we want to do is just measure our window again and make sure we have the right size. Our window's 41 inches, but actually in between the inner frame is about 37 inches. Now, as long as your wrap is wide enough, I would encourage you to mount it on the outside. You're gonna use a little bit more tape, but if you mount it to the outside of the trim here, it's gonna be a better connection, because basically when you start doing the shrink wrap, the tension on the plastic is gonna try to pull that off of the tape. And if it's on the face, it's a lot easier to pull off than if it is around the corner. Also, I just think it looks a little nicer as well. So I'm gonna clean off all around the edges here. Now, unfortunately on the top, I'm not gonna be able to do that because our curtain rod is mounted directly into the frame. That was done before I got here. I would not have done that, but so I'll just do it across the top there. And you'll see how much better it looks on the side than doing it on the top there as well. All right, so I'm just gonna start undoing this tape, and this is double-sided tape. So you'll stick it on there and then we'll peel off the protective layer once we're ready to do it. Now up at the top, again, like I said, I'm gonna just be doing this around the top here. But the key is that you just wanna make sure that it overlaps so that there's no place for the air to get out. Once you have this around the corner, you want to go ahead and peel it back so that you can intersect the new piece of tape over it. You want to overlap this next section of tape onto the first one, and so you'll have to expose that before you do it. And then once you're done, you can peel off all the backing to the tape. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to definitely give myself some extra room, and I can always trim it later. So I'm just going to unravel this whole thing, try to level this up and tack it on the corner. And now I'm just going to run my hand all the way along the top. All right, so I definitely messed this up. We have about 2 inches up here overlap. And then when we go down to the bottom, it's about 1 inch inset. But I did that on purpose so I could show you how to fix it. At least that's what I'll tell myself. So if that happens to you, don't worry about it. Just take it up at the top and just kind of pull up until you straighten out your corner on the other side, and then bunch it up right under that seam and put it onto the tape. Once we shrink wrap that, that will be fine. And if there is any gap, we can also just go over the top of that to seal it down to make sure that it's airtight. But now everything is straight again, and I can just go down across here and press it in. All right, I'm gonna do it on the other side, but you know what I am gonna do? Get this tape measure and the tape out from under there. I have done that multiple times as well, so do not lock your tools inside on the windowsill, or you just have to cut it off. All right, so at the bottom, I did a really poor job here, but there's a lot of gap here. And we're just gonna have to try to tighten that up with the hairdryer. In my experience, it'll all actually tighten up pretty well. We're gonna turn this bad boy on high. It can take a lot of heat. Just don't get right up on it or you will burn a hole through it. So I'm just gonna turn it on high and I'm gonna start going over here. What you're looking for is it just to start tightening up, and you'll see the wrinkles just start to go away. It'll kind of starburst like that, so you're gonna see these little things coming out, and you just wanna start working here and just work your way across the film until it's kind of all this nice flat look to it. As you start chasing it around, you're kind of gonna get it tight over here, and it's gonna have more ripples, so it just takes a little while. It's kind of like chasing a fart in the wind. You just gotta see what you can do your best, and stop when you feel like you're going insane. It's going really well. Now at the bottom, you remember it was really loose. Well, it's already fairly tight because I've tightened it all around to the bottom. Again, just be careful not to overdo it, because if it pulls too hard, it might stretch and snap off those edges. Now that is tight like drum. This window turned out great. You can really only tell a little bit of rippling down here in the corners, but all in all, I think it looks pretty good. All right, it's been about an hour and we're coming back to check, and I'm a little surprised. So when I look at the readings here, we can go over to the thermal camera, and we've got 46 to 47 degrees on the one that is covered, and on the other one over here, we've got, 45 to 46, so maybe 1 to 2 degrees difference still. It looks about the same. and then up at the top about 2 degrees. So it looks like we got that 2 degree separation on the bottom now. And I'm a little disappointed, quite honestly. I thought it was gonna be more than that. Honestly, so performance, I'm gonna give it 2 stars, but maybe like 1.5 stars, because it does block the direct air, but for indirect, you're only getting a degree temperature between the surface of the control versus the knot. I don't think that's great. Now, as far as pricing goes, for each window, so the 4-pack was about $6, but for the larger pack we had to get, there were $8 to cover 2 windows. So you're looking anywhere from about $6 to $12 a window, depending upon the size of your windows. Now, as far as looks go, I'm gonna give it a 2. It is nice and clear for the most part. It is a little hazy actually, which is kind of weird. It's like there's a little bit of a film on there, but you do get that nice view. But for usability, we're gonna give it a 1, because especially if you have blinds in here, if you have blinds and you cover your blinds, you better set what you want it at for the rest of the winter, because you can't touch it. So that's absolutely a 1. And ease of install, honestly, I think I'm gonna give it a 1 as well. This is really a pain in the butt. It was worse than I remembered. So all in all, not honestly a great solution. The next one we're gonna test are thermal curtains. Now, these are just a nicer version. You could also probably just use blankets, but basically these are blackout curtains or thermal curtains that have an extra little layer in here, and these are made for blocking out light. A lot of times it also helps with noise reduction, but they're very thick and heavy. So, and you can get all kinds of different varieties and colors and types and sizes, obviously. But for our windows, these are gonna be about $25 to cover each window. So to cover 4 windows, that's $100. If you already have curtains up and you wanna replace these, that's great. If you don't have curtains up, then you're also gonna have to get curtain rods and get the hangers and all of that. But the nice thing is that you could decorate it to anything that you wanted to in your house, and it could just become part of the decoration as well as keeping out the cold. So let's see how these perform and how they're gonna work on the window. So this is not gonna be a tutorial on how to hang curtains, because we have a curtain rod up here. So I'm gonna just put these straight onto the curtain rods. Again, all kinds of different ways to mount these, but what really is the most important thing is that you're gonna have the whole window covered. All right, so it's been about an hour and I think things have equalized, and wow, what a difference. Let's go to the thermal cam. Without anything on it, we're at about 50 degrees. And the thermal curtain, we're at about 63 degrees. So that's a 13 degree temperature difference. You can see it's kind of a little bit more purple down there at the bottom, because we do have that double storm window up at the top. We would expect that. But if we go up to the top of the thermal curtain, we're about 67 degrees. And just for reference, that's about room temperature in here. It's about 67 degrees in this room. And if you go up to the glass on the uncovered side, we're around 60 degrees. So up at the top, around a 7 degree differential. I think a lot of that just because there's a lot more cold air coming into the bottom. I did tape the side of the curtain just to see what it would look like, if there's any difference of holding that curtain tight to the wall. I also did it there at the bottom. So on the right side of the wall, that is about 67 degrees. And looks like about the same. So not a huge difference on the left and the right, maybe about a degree. So you may not have to tape that up, but you could use some little tack pins or maybe even some Velcro if you really want to get the best out of it. But at the bottom, you can see where the air is actually escaping, the cold air there. So it's about 62 degrees down there at the bottom on on my side here, and on the other side, it's about 63 degrees. So it looks like you're gaining about a degree or 2 from having it taped. That's why you want to make sure you have a long curtain that will rest on the floor, because all you're basically trying to do is trap all that air back there, and the thermal mass of the curtain obviously has a huge impact on that cold getting through the conduction, because this is a great insulator. All right, so taking a look at all these different options, and we did throw the backer rod in there as an option, so you get 6. It's a little bonus one here. So most of these range from that $4 to $10, and you can get about 4 windows for that price, depending upon the size of your windows. And the drapes obviously are gonna be costing the most at about $100, but the drapes by far had the best rating. So of all of our stars, they got 3 stars across the board. Now, the rest of the window film and the bubble wrap, you know, I would probably not even bother with. Definitely the bubble wrap is just horrible with 1 to 2 degrees. The nice thing about the window film is that it does stop draft, and as well as the weather seal tape and the insulation. The backer rod, if you're gonna throw that in there, that's just a nice little add-on. So you can also kind of stack these up, but I would definitely recommend blocking out the airflow as much as you can, and then maybe go with some drapes, and I think that's the best solution for your window insulation. Let's just leave bubble wrap for its intended purpose. If you want to see 5 upgrades for your garage door to make your garage warmer, you can check that video out right there. I'm Brad. Until next time, get out there and build something awesome.